welcome to Hope for Survival YouTube. Happy post-election day. I didn't say anything, but it is a good day. So anyway, thank you for tuning in, and welcome to all you new subscribers, and thanks for following the Hurricane Helene updates. We much appreciate it, and in this update, I don't want to use the word closure, but this video is kind of a conclusion to the Elk Mills-Poga, Tennessee disaster deployment location. However, it's not the end of the disaster. So in this video, I've got some video drone footage from Bandit in the bushes, our brother Trevor, and also discussion with Dr. Tracy Elder, who was the deployed incident commander for this event, and some discussion we share on thoughts from the deployment. And we'll kind of flow through that, and anyway, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you get something out of the human factor side to the disaster location. And so much of what we discuss, it's not specific to the Elk Mills-Poga location. These human factors apply to any disaster at any location worldwide. Of understanding the human mindset, why it's so important, at Hope for Survival. One of the things that we've taught for 5.5 years is one of the first steps in preparedness is you've got to understand yourself and your limitations, and getting your own personal psychological, physical, and spiritual self in order before you can help others. That means you understand how you function and what are your limitations. So there's some discussion on that as well. But when we get into the video with Trevor and his drone, kind of gives you a really good perspective from above as to how it happened and why it happened and why we ended up at a disaster location in Poga, Tennessee. It kind of gives you a great view from above. So anyway, let's get on with it, and hope you enjoy it and get something out of it. Thanks for tuning in. Hey everyone, I'm honored to have Dr. Tracy Elder join me here, and we're going to kind of do I don't want to use the word closure because it's not really closure, but kind of a wrap up on this phase of our part in the Elk Mills-Poga, Tennessee response to Hurricane Helene. And we're both back at our homes now in Tennessee and Ohio, and have had I don't know if we've had 2 days to rest, but before time passed too much, and we still had fresh thoughts because things are moving and other projects are coming along. And I wanted to join up with Dr. T to kind of have some discussion a little bit to share with you, because so many of the videos that are out there that you can watch have they're focused primarily on so much of the damage and the loss of structure and loss of life and so on. And one of the things I've tried to do in this series is include what's most important in these disasters, and that is showing you a human side of the victims that are living through these disasters and the role
Mhm.
that we played when we went into this location, as it should be at any location, um, to kind of provide some stabilization and sustainability, if you will, um, and issue hugs where we needed to issue hugs, and listen when we need to listen. But anyway, uh, so Dr. T, here we are.
Yep.
After several weeks and long hours and a lot of dust and
Yeah.
daily routine changes and what comes tomorrow and so forth. And I appreciate you being here. And I wanted to talk with you a little bit on um, based on what was known before we went and once we got there, and say the first 48 to 72 hours of kind of getting everyone rowing in the right direction and all that.
Mhm.
Overall, what's and you've been at some really, this was, I don't want to say it's small because I don't want to take anything away from anyone that's in a disaster, but
Mhm.
you've been at Katrina, you've been at 911.
Mhm.
Um, what is your, as you're now out of Poga and you're looking
Mhm.
back on it, what's kind of your assessment?
Well, I think my role this time was very different than most of my roles before. Before, I'm kind of like I'm just another cog in the machine. You know what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
had a place to work. As chaplains, um, we were tasked with doing certain things. Well, this time I was the actual incident commander. So um, I've always been under an incident commander at one of these things. I'm either attached to fire, police, or military, whatever. And this time I was asked to step up into that position, which is a very different role than a chaplain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's very let me just put it this way: the all disasters are the same, just a different level of intensity or destruction or that kind of thing. This level of intensity and destruction, this one went very fast. I've never stood down before 90 days before, so this is a testimony to the people that were there. They were amazing. They built their own roads, they built their own bridges, they got each other out.
Yep.
100% of the roads were cleared by the people who lived there. I had never seen that before. You always see some level of that, of people helping people, but not to this extent. So this is a testimony to this community. But it's also the fact that this is how they've always lived. They're mountain people. They didn't, I mean, the grocery store was still 30 miles away. There was nothing
Right.
close. The gas station was still 19 miles away. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Things are a little bit different because the roads are cut off and now they have to go an hour and a half versus, 15 minutes or something like that. So that creates a little bit of a little bit of a barrier for them. Because any convenience that they had that was 15 miles away is now inconveniently an hour and a half away.
Sure.
Even school. I mean, even the kids going to school. I mean, they have a 2 hour bus ride now,
Yeah.
where before it might have been
Terrible.
30 minutes. I mean, there's a lot of impact there that way. As far as them uh, moving through their lives um, easily. That's impacted. Those who lost their homes, those that have lost their lives, those who've lost loved ones, those who have lost pets, because pets are family
Sure.
too, to most people. Um, uh, this group of people did it very well. And like I said, I think it's a testimony to how they lived before the storm. And these are people of their community in every sense of the word of community. They know each other. They know who has what. They know if they need something, they can call this person. If I need this, and I call that person. If I need a road built, I call Bob.
Yeah.
You know,
Bob.
or I need a bridge, I'll call Bob. You know, it's that kind of a thing, and it's deep seated. And you know what? They didn't just allow us to come into their community and work. They made us part of it.
Yeah.
We became part of their community, and just you know, even the testimonies of that. The older gentleman Jim, who came down every single day on his little gator,
Yeah.
and he'd say, "There she is. There's my friend Tracy." And his wife would come down, and his daughter would come down in the evenings, and they would say, He came home, and he said he saw his friend Tracy today." You know, it's things like that that make you part of it. And you know, you sat on their porch. I mean, for hours, decompressing at the end of the day. These are the kind of people that they are. They let you in. They let us in, and they made us part. So it wasn't just, you know, that we were just this group of volunteers coming to muck out a house or to provide gasoline. It was, we became family. And anything that we did, or anything that we said, or anything that happened there, they were always saying, "Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
No, I don't need that. You should give it to somebody else. Somebody else might need that." And, you know, just getting them to even receive some of the help was a little bit kind of challenging.
Sure.
Until we started to tell them, "Look, you're helping me out. If you take this, you're helping me out. You don't understand. I have so much of it. Would you please take it?" They would take it, you know, things like that. They were absolutely amazing as a community. And again, if somebody needed something, they took care of each other that way too, or they would come down and get it, or they would let us know. And we would all just, it was us doing it together. And you realize that in every disaster that I've ever been into, no matter what, when you bring people in to your community, you change the culture, you know, and for the better or for the worse. You understand what I'm saying? You actually impact the culture of that place, because this to them, on their timeline of this community, this to them is a marker. You know, it's always going to be there now in their history. And what are they going to remember about it? What are they going to remember? Are they going to remember all the loss? Or are they going to remember how they came together, how there were these people who came from outside, who helped, you know, do this or do that? Or are they going to remember the devastation? And this community, I think, is resilient enough that they're already rebuilding. They cried a minute, they rolled up their sleeves, and they went to work.
Yeah. They haven't stopped.
And yeah, and they haven't stopped yet. They're still doing it. And but again, they did that before.
Right.
And again, this is part of their culture, and being able to come and work alongside them in that, you know, um, I think that they impacted us just as much as we impacted them in so many ways, because, you know, I always go back to what can we learn from this? And what I learned most from these people is that it is possible to survive something in a community without it turning ugly,
Oh
or
yeah.
turning,
Yeah.
you know, but it takes work. It takes work, because what you realize in a disaster is that the thin veil of society it's a thin veil, you know. And what our role was, whether we understood it or not, was we brought back um, a sense of structure, or a sense of hope, or a sense of, okay, a direction. Here we go. We have these things that we brought here that everybody needs, and we're gonna be part of, you know, providing those things. But we also brought with us the sense of, okay, it's going to be okay. We're going to rebuild. We are going to we have a sense of direction, a sense of focus, a sense of we're moving forward, because our presence there meant that, okay, there's a response. And so now that there's a response, now we can move forward. Now we have a direction, and now we have rebuilding and infrastructure starting again.
Yeah.
And whether anybody understands that or not, people crave structure. They crave normalcy. And so we were able to bring a little bit of that there. And it's amazing what you can get used to because, like even the new mode of transportation, I mean, riding around on side by sides everywhere. I mean, it's amazing what you get used to because you're not driving a car anymore. You're driving a side by side on on the side of a broken road
Yeah.
that if you go too far to the right, you're in the river and dead. It's dangerous. It's all those things too, but it's amazing what you can get used to when this stuff happens. But you understand, like I said, the role was very different for me this time because I had to stand and be misunderstood a lot because the people that were coming in from the outside, you have the people right in the ground zero moment of it. The people, this happened to them. Okay, this is our bullseye. So these are the people that we're working with first. It happened to them. But anytime you bring a volunteer in there, or anytime you bring somebody from the outside in there, it's happening to them now too. Because they're impacted by what they're seeing, they're impacted by what they're hearing, but they're also bringing with them their outside stuff. And nobody ever knows how they're going to respond or how they're going to react to something like this until they're in the middle of it. And when you're in the middle of it, and you find out, oh crap, I can't handle this. That, as somebody who's in the leadership position, you have to deal with that too. Because that person's panic or that person's inability to cope or that person's control issues or whatever it is that they're having impacts the way that you can move forward, because you have to, number one, that person needs to be protected.
But they are
need to
now
be
a problem
protected.
on the inside.
Yeah. Yes. And then the people need to be protected as well, because the one thing that we can't do is panic.
Correct.
And the one thing that we can't do is give in to fear and to rumors or to some of the other things that people bring with them. And so as a leader, you're walking this tightrope because you've been beyond the veil yourself. You're beyond the veil. There is no infrastructure. There is nobody coming to save you. There's just you and there's just them and what you have in front of you. And you have a job to do, and you have to do it the best of your ability. And just getting somebody even to medical help was a horrible inconvenience for people because there was no EMS. There was no fire department. There is no hospital there. There is no, you were lucky if you got a nurse. And so we made sure that we had medics and people like that around us because we were having medical emergencies here and there in people's daily lives. And if you have a medical condition and you're cut off from the rest of the world because your roads are gone and you have no way out or you have no way to get there and there's no ambulance anymore and there's no other way to get out.
And you can't call.
And you can't call because you have no communications whatsoever. And we all learned that we need a Starlink to make it through the apocalypse, just saying. But all of a sudden, your medical condition now that was managed by your medication, your doctor, your procedure, your whatever that you had regularly is now a medical emergency, life-threatening situation because you can't get to your medicine, your doctor, your hospital, your whatever. And to try to get an ambulance there or to try to get a medevac there, it's going to be hours unless somebody can get you out. Right. And so you realize, you realize those things too. And then if you have, while you have this going on over here, you've got this going on over here, and then you got this going on over here, and so it's delicate. I always call it spinning plates. You've got all these plates spinning on the top of like a broom handle, and you just to keep them spinning and to keep them going, to make sure that these things are addressed and taken care of, because there's the tyranny of the urgent, the things that have to be done right now, versus the things that can wait. It's not going to affect anybody's life if the tent or the supplies aren't neat. that's
Correct.
not going to that's not going to impact somebody's life. But to the person
It's
who's just
cosmetic.
coming in here, yeah, if the person who's just coming in here, if they only see that, if they're given that piece, or they see that as their piece, and they look at that as the, and they hold on to it with such a tight grip that they can't see people anymore. They can't see the expression on somebody's face, or they can't, um, because of their stress, they can't be kind, or they can't be something, because they have to have this way. You realize that that person is overwhelmed with the stress of this too, and you have to have that delicate balance of trying to um, make sure that that gets addressed at some point too. Because you can't have somebody holding on so tightly that they break
Yeah.
apart too, without having some sort of remedy for that, or some sort of awareness of that. So we have to realize that there's a lot of stuff that we bring with us. And again, when the thin veil is gone, of society is gone, you're in a reality that is the reality. This are all around us, all of this societal, it's an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Look how quickly it can be stripped away by water, or by roads being gone, or communications being gone. Look how quickly it eroded and elapsed. And so people will go to their base nature. They will go to their base nature when something like this happens. Now, in this community, their base nature was to help one another,
Their
to come
survivability
together.
was so high.
It was, their
Taking
resilience was
away
amazing.
those, what we consider basics,
Hmm.
we have a phone, we have
Hmm.
the internet, we
Hmm.
have water, and so forth. But to them, uh, I really, other than medically, I don't recall hearing anyone truly complain about not having a phone,
No,
other than to make a
no,
medical call.
yeah,
But,
no.
but the, I think one of the great lessons that any of us could share and learn from is the ability of these folks to survive
Hmm.
um, with basic skills that they do almost every day.
Yes. And I
We
think too,
don't.
the area is kind of unique where we were too, because you had very poor people
Yep.
and you had very rich people. There didn't seem to be very much in between.
Yep.
And you had people that were hardworking already. And again, they had their own barter system. Nobody took money for anything. They
Correct.
bartered. How
Correct.
many times, how many times did we see that going on? Oh, well, so and so has that. Or let's go talk to Chris, who's the side by side guru, because the belt went bad on your side by side, and oh, look, he has one. You know what I'm saying? Um, things like that. And they would not take anything for it. But when they needed something, and they would come down, and I would ask them, hey, do you need something? Can I help you with something? And they would ask for something. They would, I mean, it was immediately given. There was never any type of, well, what do you got for that? You know what I'm saying? What are you going to give me? It wasn't like that at all. Like the road that got the mudslide on it, and those people were trapped behind the mudslide. Nobody sat around and said, okay, we have to wait for TDOT or somebody to come in and fix that road. Let's see what we can. No, they went and found somebody who had an excavator, and they
Yeah.
found somebody who had a bulldozer. Somebody else had gravel. And there wasn't any talk about payback. There wasn't any talk about payment at all. They just went in there and got them out. They built a road,
Yeah.
the power came back on, and people got out. And there was never any sense of, not once did I ever have a sense from anybody saying, man, I did all this for them and they can't even blah, blah, blah for me. I had never heard that, not once. Not once. There was no sense of me, my, I. It was us. And that goes back to the part of the community of becoming part of the community when we come into it. Like I said, you can change the culture. You change a culture when you step into it. You bring your who you are with you, and it changes the culture of a community. And we had so many people that were impacted by just the kindness, an act of kindness by saying, here, don't just take one, take two.
Correct.
Here, I know you need this, please take it. When they would have never asked for it, or just say, hey, how's your daughter, how's your husband doing, how's this happening, how's that happening. And and man, I'm telling you, they didn't need phones either, because I'm telling you, it went around like wildfire. Everybody
Yeah.
knew everything within like an hour. Like when
Yeah.
we got our stand down orders, we had people coming in within 2 hours saying, I hear you got stand down.
Where
Oh
they
yeah,
been?
yeah, okay. And they didn't have a phone. It
Yeah.
just went mouth to mouth to mouth and house to house. It was amazing. I mean, they were very well informed, better than we were most of the time.
I
And but they lived that way before.
correct.
That was the way they lived before. It was they're all part, and they're all part of that community. And it wasn't like nosy neighbors. It was hey, we need to get the word out. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, um, so that kind of part of it too. And they embraced us and made us part of that community as well, which is like I said, it's a marker for them. It becomes a thing. And are they going to remember, you know, this crazy lady from Ohio and this other guy from Dandridge, and are they going to remember those things? I think they are, because I think that this becomes part of the stories that they tell. It becomes part of the stories that we tell. It's
Yeah.
part of us now, and it's part of them now too. And that happens every time in every disaster, but to this degree, this one's special.
I
Um,
agree.
because it didn't, like I said, there was no ugliness in it except for what came in from outside. We had our little kerfuffle there, uh, with the people that came in from North Carolina and threatened us and threatened other people. We were able to manage it. We were able to quell it. We were able to get it, kind of tamped down, and um, just by communicating, just by having a conversation, just by dispelling, just by speaking the truth. Hey, no, 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 these are my trailers. They're not taking anything from here. Um, if you really want to help these people, this isn't helping anybody. What you're doing isn't helping. You're actually hurting us, because if people are in fear to come down here now, or these people don't get help from FEMA, which they're entitled to, it's their tax money that they're getting back. If they don't have the opportunity to come and even be part of that, because you've scared them off, or you've created a situation where that's untenable anymore, then you're only hurting them. You're hurting this community, you're hurting us, you're hurting the people that are
Yeah. You're
are
doing
trying to rebuild. You're with something that's not even true. They aren't here to take or confiscate anything that we have here.
you're doing
I don't know
worse.
what's happening anywhere else. I just know that that's not what's happening here right now. And I told her, I said, you need to go back up there and clear my name up there, because if you're telling people that I'm FEMA down here, and more people from your side come down and they start to shoot up my trailers, or they
Fire
start to
shots.
hurt my people, or create a problem, I'm coming after you with the law, because we know who you are now. And I believe you when you say that you're trying to help people, that you're reacting to the suffering. I believe you when you say that. You're very passionate about that. And I would rather talk to you on that level and say to you, look, let's work together. Let's work together, because FEMA's coming and going. They're not even staying here. They just came in for today and tomorrow, and then they'll be back next week. But they're not staying here. But you and I, we can do something together if you're willing to do that. But you got to calm down a little bit here. And so she finally did. She started crying, and we had a little hug and we hugged it out. And then she left, but she came back couple hours later with food and supplies for the people there, an apology and everything else. And one of the men that was with her, he came back the next day and apologized too for the same reasons, because I'm not going to get into whether that was happening over where they were from or not. They say stuff. I didn't see it. All I know is that right here in the realm that I was given, it's not happening here. It's not. The people that these FEMA people, they're like the BMV. You go in there, you give them your information, you register, and they put money in your bank account, or they get more. They have to get more information from
Yeah.
you, but they're here to give you money. That's it. They didn't have any guns. They didn't have any badges. They didn't have any authority to do anything, and they were there at my pleasure or leisure, because Chief and I had talked, and we determined that if the people needed this opportunity, if they were going to be able to get help, this was the way to do it. And they were there by permission. They're like vampires. They can't come in unless they're invited. So Chief
Yeah.
and I sat down and talked, and I don't think I could have lived with myself if I would have put a kibosh on that opportunity for people, because there were people who actually did come in and get help.
Correct.
There were people that came in, they immediately got money in their bank accounts that day. They immediately got program help. Other things began to happen for them, and they immediately got help. So if that would have been shut down, then those people would have been left to try to figure it out on their own. And they weren't going to have the money to do it. They didn't have the insurance to do it. They didn't have they were going to be left with such a loss, so much more of a loss
And we would
than
have denied
than
them by making
yeah,
that decision. We were basically denying them that right.
yeah,
And another thing I think is really important on the topic of FEMA, we all have our own opinions,
yeah.
but something we have to remind ourselves, I think, especially after the last month, the individuals who are in the field representing FEMA, they
Hmm.
don't write the policies.
No,
They're not in Washington D.C.
no,
They're just like us. They're just wearing
yeah,
a hat, trying to do a different job,
yeah.
and uh,
A lot of them are volunteers and reservists, and
yeah,
a lot of them are veterans. A lot of them are volunteer fire department people. A lot of them are, and they're at this level that where we are, right there on the ground. I truly believe that if they felt that they were working for an organization that was doing those things, that were taking things away from people, they would not be working for them.
yeah, especially the veterans.
Yes,
But
and we saw mostly veterans where we were.
um, you have to admit though, leaving there on Monday,
Mhm.
the last week or two, you got to admit it was kind of a weird feeling walking around, like your eyes in the back of your head were like looking in the mountains, making sure there
Yeah.
wasn't someone up there
Hmm.
watching
Yeah.
from the
Well,
hills.
yeah, we know that they were, because they kept coming back down. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? We know that they were.
yeah,
Um, and again, that's another thing, is as the leadership too. I mean, I had to keep people from getting sniped. I had to worry about that, because I mean, again, when you threaten somebody, and again, I'm constitutional carry. I am concealed carry. I don't have a problem with guns, and but when you're surrounding people and somebody's telling them, "Look, I have a gun, and you have 2 minutes to get off my mountain." Now, I have to say, I did not hear that. That was reported to me by the people that were being threatened, particularly. And again, if you're, in the situation, one of the FEMA workers came over to where I was and said, "Look, we're being threatened. This is what's happening. I need you to call 911." So that was how I got involved in the first place, because I wasn't there at the very beginning when those threats were made. I walked into her making threats, but I was able to kind of calm her down. But the fact of the matter is that it was so unnecessary. It was so unnecessary. But again, it was built on this fear and these wild stories, that FEMA was,
imagination.
yeah, it was all of these different things. And like I said, I didn't see any of that where we were. Whether it was happening other places, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
You know, I have no idea what was going on over there, but I know that where we were, things worked the way pretty much it always works when I'm at a disaster. I mean, the people that are on the ground, they're getting people's information and registering them. Those are normally the people that I'm around when because it's on the inside. We're on the inside of the tape. We're not on the outside of the tape.
Yeah.
This is the way it's always been. This is the way they've always done things. It's never not been that way at any disaster I've ever been in. You have the FEMA people over here, the Red Cross people over there. You have the military, whoever, wherever. They're all in the compound together, and they all have a different job to do. And like I said, in any disaster I have ever been in, I've never actually seen the workers at that level try to confiscate anything. Now, if there are people above them that are doing that, I don't know. Are there people higher up the food chain that are doing things that are probably not how I want to put it, that are doing things in a nefarious form? Could be, could not be. I don't know. I'm not at that level. I'm boots on the ground right here, right here.
Well, it's kind of like we
Um,
talked about, in the very beginning and throughout it, and we at
mhm,
points even had to make the point to brief other people,
mhm,
inside the zone. All your politics, your personal feelings, to some degree, other than your faith, most of your beliefs are left outside because
yeah,
24
yeah,
7, your focus is on the people and,
yeah.
and getting their life back to some level of sustainability.
Mhm.
And honestly, I really don't know anyone that was in the zone. I don't know when they had time to even think about this other
Yeah, yeah.
stuff.
No.
Know,
And
it was so
and
busy.
this whole thing about certain agendas or certain things being pushed on people. Um, let's take diversity. Okay. When you looked at our group of people, our little group of people, we had Buddhists, we had Christians, we had people from every kind of faith there that you could even imagine. And you know what? It never became an issue because we were just doing the work. And at the end of the day, we cared about whether or not you were okay too. At the end of the day, we cared about those things. We cared about the people that we were taking care of, and we cared about the needs of the people that we were working with too. And so we had, we had a guy we called Buddha Billy because he's Buddhist, and you had Halfway Bill who lived halfway between here and there. And so we gave everybody these little names. And again, you change the culture this way too. And everybody had their little names and everybody had their stuff, but none of that made it made us all better. Because you know what? It never became an issue. I mean, we didn't have to have a philosophical discussion about whether or not, this was this or this was that. It didn't have to turn into that. The only time it ever became an issue was when people from the outside, again, came in trying to push their own agenda. My husband had had an encounter with somebody. Um, he with a certain organization that was a Christian organization, and they came in and said, "Hey, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this," and he started to say, "Well, that's great. This is what we're doing right now. We have this and we have this," and they started to yell at him and say, "Well, you don't need us then. Okay, well, you don't really need us. Let's just go." Blah blah blah. And then they got in the truck and they yelled at him through the window. They said, "You need to get saved." And he's like, "Well, hold on a second. I thought we were just having a conversation." And they sped off and basically, okay, so what was the point of all of that? Because if it were true that you really felt like he needed to be saved, how much more is he ever going to go walk toward
Yeah, when you roll up
that
your
goal?
window and leave dust all over him.
Yeah, after you've screamed and yelled at him and kicked your feet and screamed at him. We saw that time after time after time with those coming from the outside with an agenda Their only agenda is this and this and this. You can only do things my way. You can only do things this way. And we're like, we reject that soundly. We don't believe that there's only one way to do this. We believe that if we're to be the people of faith that God called us to be, then we need to embrace everyone right now and get to work. We stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder, linking arms and linking shields as we move forward as a movement to tackle this crisis, to restore this place, to heal these people. And when people have an agenda other than that, that's when there's conflict. And we didn't have that because none of us were trying to push our own agenda. We just got in there in the dirt and we loved each other through it. We hugged each other through it. We had good days and bad days. We had times when we were right on it. We had times when it didn't go so well. We had times where we were calm and patient. We had times where things were too much and we said things we shouldn't have said. We all got there. But the fact of the matter is at the end of the day, we were all there for one another. We were in it together, no matter what, because we couldn't go across that bridge. We couldn't go across that road, just like they couldn't go across that road. And then the things that we needed were just out of reach and we had to find another way. And we did. We found another way because we were able to communicate. It's when you can't communicate, when it breaks down to, well, just need to be saved, or you just need this, or blah, 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 blah. That's when all communication fails. And you can't build on that. You can't move forward. You can't pick up the next piece
Well, you're
with
never
that.
going to succeed in those hills when you
No.
come in with that pre-agenda.
Yeah. No.
Because if you looked at like your experience at 911 or Katrina, and I look at past experiences around the world, whether it was a natural disaster or civil war, whatever it may be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think one of the unique things about this experience we just had in both of our past experiences, you go in, and whether it's on the military side or you're doing it with some form of an ICS structure, there's a framework,
Yes, there's a
and you
framework.
operate under that framework,
Yes.
uh, and it's a very firm framework.
Mm-hmm.
We went into Poga, Tennessee, at the with the Appalachia folks, and it would be kind of like in both of our past, we had a
Mm-hmm.
knife that everything was cut, cut, cut. But we get to Poga, and it's like, okay, so our form of ICS for this area, we've got to take that knife and we got to lay it flat
Yep.
because we're not cutting anymore. Now we're smoothing.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think that was one of the biggest lessons
Mm-hmm.
uh, early was you will not, and that's a capital WILL, you will not succeed in these hills with these people
Mm-hmm.
by it's my way or the highway.
Yep.
And this is what the book says, because they're going to tell you what you can do with your book
Yeah,
in
exactly.
in a very kind way. But
Mm-hmm.
so it's like we've got to move the ball down the field,
Mm-hmm.
but we're the away team
Yep.
on their field, right?
Yep.
So we've got to move the ball down the field with them. So
Yep.
let's hear how they think we should move the ball down. We're still within that
Yep.
ICS
The
guardrail,
structure. Mm-hmm.
but yet we included them.
That's such an important point, and they included us too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's such an important point because we needed we were the ones who needed to be flexible. We were the ones because this happened to them, and we needed to hear and we needed to listen and to ask the question, what do you need and how can I help you? Because if we'd have come in and said, okay, you need to, you need to, you need to, and I teach this in my chaplain training, you can't use that terminology anymore because you don't know what somebody needs. And in a
Right.
situation like this, they don't always know what they need either. They just know that and it's a great equalizer. A disaster like this is a great equalizer. You find out for real, beyond the veil, that this is the truth. This is the truth. The veil is the illusion. The veil is this thin veil over society. This is the illusion. Right on the other side of that veil, that is very thin, lies this. And who are we going to be? So are we going to be the people that come in and raid and invade? Or are we going to be the people that come in and sit down and say, okay, here's what I brought. What else do you need? How do or how do we use this to help everybody? We have to have the conversations.
Yeah.
We have to be communicative. We have to be the people that come in and say, okay, I'm not from here. I'm Appalachian, but I'm Western Pennsylvania Appalachian. We understand each other, but how do you do it here?
Yeah.
You can't just assume it's the same, but there's a lot of mindset that's the same. There's a lot of understanding that's the same, but what does that look like here? So what do you need and how can I help you? That's part of it. But if we come in as the kind of people that are saying, okay, here I am to save you, everybody just get in line. Everybody, come on, just get in line, and I'll give you what I think you need, or I'll give you what I feel you deserve. That doesn't work. It never has.
They would have
But
laughed.
being, yeah, or they would have come in after dark and took it themselves. Just
Yeah.
like, I mean, we saw the whole road war with the gate.
Oh yeah.
The state puts up a gate on the road to close off the road. It's down that night. They put up cement barriers. They are moved the next morning. It's game on basically with these people.
Oh
And
yeah.
again, they're going to do what they need to do to live the way that they live. And because they needed to get across that crack. They needed to get over there. And they found a way to do what they needed to do. And if you're somebody who can't handle the breakdown of the rules,
Yeah.
if
Flexibility
you
is
can't
key.
handle it, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. You're not going to survive the apocalypse because if you can't just live and let live with some things and understand that that's just the way that they do things. It's got nothing to do with you. It happened before you got here. It's going to happen after you leave. This is just how they do things. And you can't put a judgment on that. You can't say it's right. You can't say it's wrong. You can't say it just is. It is what it is. And you know what I'm saying? Some people have a harder time with the lack of rules or the lack of structure. And some of us thrive better without it. You know what I'm saying? We can be flexible in chaos and we thrive there rather than, you know, um, fit neatly into boxes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of us just don't
Absolutely.
fit. I always tell people anymore, I'm not fit for polite society anymore. I really am not. I used to pastor. I'm not a pastor anymore because I can't do it. I'm not fit for polite society. I'm just not. If somebody wants to sit there for 20 years and do the same thing over and over again and not feel that um, they don't feel that they have any responsibility to grow. They don't have any responsibility to change or to repent, even, or to be part of the larger movement going forward towards something. I don't have time for that anymore. Pastors' hearts they can sit and be patient with that. I can't anymore. I always tell everybody I'm a chaplain. I'm kind of like I'm the mud and blood. I see the guy in the ditch. I'm going to go down there. I'll bind his wound, bring him up, and hand him off, and then I'm back in the ditch. Because in the ditch, I know the outcome of that. You know what I'm saying? I know the impact of that. I know what it's like to be in the ditch, you know? And Some people can't even go in the ditch. They just see it and they pass by. I think that I read that somewhere in scripture. I think that I read that somewhere in a book there, how certain people kind of just pass by. But there are some of us that are built for the mud and blood in the ditch, and we thrive in the chaos and the breakdown. And we're able to maneuver through it a little bit better, which makes me not fit for polite society because um, I have a tendency to, if you're acting up or if you're doing something that's harming other people, I'm probably not going to be quiet about that. And
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to be nice at the moment. We can talk about it later, but right now you need to move away from this situation and you need to go quickly.
Yeah. It's kind of like
I always
the,
tell everybody, you know how when your children, when your child is there and they're getting ready to, like fall off the couch or something, and you hurry up and you grab them,
yeah.
and before they actually fall, and you realize later that you kind of bruised them a little bit whenever you grab them so they didn't fall and hurt themselves. You realize, oh, you feel terrible about that, but at the same time, you realize the greater harm. So I always say bruising is okay, but crushing is never good.
Yeah.
Our intention is not to crush people, but bruising them by taking them and saying, okay, listen, you have to see what impact you're having on everyone else by your behavior. And if you're unwilling to change your behavior, or you're unwilling to examine yourself and understand what we're talking about, or at least have the conversation about maybe we need to do this a different way. If you're arrogant or you are prideful or you are just out and out defiant, um, bruising is probably going to happen because you can't stay there. You're a distraction.
Right.
You're creating an issue that is going to upset the delicate balance that we're trying to do here. And if I have to hurt your feelings, it's not, I don't like to do that, but I'm not going to not tell you to go stand somewhere else,
Which
you
reminds me of
know?
that guy, uh, the guy Sunday night when everyone was gone, right an hour before you got back. It was kind of that way. It's like,
Yeah.
I'll be respectful to anyone, and even if I disagree, try to help them. But
Hmm.
the guy got in my personal space,
Hmm.
for one, which is a violation, and two,
Hmm.
he's yelling at me for something that set him off, which,
Hmm.
uh, and he was armed,
Hmm.
and it was kind of like, first off, get out of my face, you know, step back and
Hmm.
rethink how you're approaching this topic that's upsetting you.
Yeah.
And until you're out of my face,
Yeah.
I have nothing to say to you, and do
Yeah.
not put your hand near that firearm.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I would say this to anyone if you're listening. Many of the views, especially if you're a constitutional loving citizen, I would say this to you. If you have something that sets you off about a constitutional right that's being violated, before you go spouting off to anyone and making yourself look like a fool, step
Hmm.
back and rethink of how you're going to go about expressing yourself versus flying off the handle and going into
Hmm.
a rant over what it is, you know, going and knocking on the door of deputy sheriffs with a sidearm hanging off your hip and you're like getting in their face. That's
Probably not a good idea.
totally wrong approach to trying
Hmm.
to win or influence someone as to
Hmm.
your point.
Hmm. Because the truth is, people are willing to listen, but it's how I always say that it's how you approach things. It's
Yeah.
how you say it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
That either trigger people or get them on your side, and how you're going to do that um, makes a difference. And when we're in this situation, things are already tense. People are already stressed. People are already here. And again, some people speak out of their trauma at the time, or they're just taking it, or some people just take the opportunity just to, at that moment to go into whatever it is they're going to go into. We all have to understand the difference between the two. Is this somebody who's speaking out of their trauma because they're not coping well, or is this somebody who's just taking an opportunity to vent their spleen because it's they feel like they can at this moment, and it's a very different thing. But leadership comes down to, we get it right, we get it wrong, but the intentions behind it um, are that we are trying desperately, desperately to bring a sense of, this is going somewhere.
Correct.
We really are. We see progress. We are moving. It is happening, and we have hope, and we have, this sucks. It's terrible. It's not okay, but we are in this together, and we are moving this together. And everybody's heard. That's important. Everybody needs to be heard. And again, learning to listen to people in those situations and understanding the difference. Somebody who needs to be heard versus somebody who wants to spout. There are two
Yeah.
different personalities, two different things going on there. And one is productive, the other is counterproductive. It doesn't go anywhere. It's circular arguments. It's things that you can do nothing about. But people who need to be heard, it's going somewhere. They're trying to work through it as they're talking. They're trying to process. They're trying to move forward, and don't exactly know the way. And so, having somebody that can walk with them through that
I think
is a
part
really
of
big part.
I think part of our I think part of our role, or anyone who's feeling it, but I think part of our role, to some degree, we were for the period on the ground, we were like shock absorbers for
Yes.
that community. Our role, other than doing tasks to help achieve sustainability, to a
Yeah.
large degree, our job was to endure the suck
Mm-hmm.
away from
Yep.
them, to
Yep.
let them get back on their feet and get off of crutches and walk again.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and that's okay. You
Yep.
know,
And
um,
like I said, we get it right, we get it wrong, but in the end, we had their best interests at our hearts.
yeah,
And not everybody who came to serve did that. Not everybody who came had that same attitude, because some people, your character matters, and that's what you bring with you, your integrity, your character. And some people don't have a lot of integrity or character, that when they're in this situation, like I said, people go to their basest nature. And when they come into this situation, they think that they're going to get some sort of accolade or some sort. They're there for another reason. You remember the young man who said, "Hey, can I uh, can I get a certificate for this? Can I put this on my resume?" Do you remember that one? And it's like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. And it's like, you know, that's probably not the question most people would have asked me
Dr.
when they came
Welby
into
and
this
D's great
situation.
grandson.
I'm just, I'm just
Grandpa
saying,
sent me to camp for a week. Can I get a
yeah,
certificate?
yes,
Like,
yes, and I don't know what to tell you,
whatever you
but
do, dude, don't go in
you
the
just,
hills.
yeah, yep. And so, and it's not an easy thing, because you're dealing with all these emotions of all these other people, but you're dealing with the emotions of your team as well, and your own as you go through it. But for whatever reason, I know why I am the way that I am. I understand I'm wired differently than most people. Like I said, I can do my job and I can fall apart later. And I think that that's most people who have been through some stuff or been trained or seasoned to do that. Most military people are that way. They can do their job and they can fall apart later. And when it's over, and you process it and you do what you need to do. But you have to just like with Moses, going back to Moses, just like with Moses, he wasn't able to enter the promised land because he hit the rock. He got angry and he hit the rock. He wasn't showing any different emotions than God himself was showing. God got angry at them. He called them a stiff-necked people, right? He got, I mean, he was having a few issues with some personalities there too. While Moses is up on the mountain, you realize that as you begin to read through that whole encounter of Moses with the people in the wilderness for those 40 years, you realize that this plays out in our daily lives all the time at different levels. So like when you start even to look at the rebellion that started, Moses is up on the mountain with God getting the tablets, and he's having a conversation. And Aaron and Miriam are down here with the people. The people are starting to whine a little bit. And Aaron and Miriam in Moses' own family, it began in his family. His brother and his sister were like, well, aren't we anointed by God too? Aren't we leaders here too? Can't we? And the next thing you know, there's a golden calf being formed. And then you have the elders or the priesthood partaking. So it starts in the family, then it moves to the priesthood, the elders and the priesthood in the church, whatever you want to call it. And then it finally goes to the entire people, to where all of a sudden the end of this is that Korah and his rebellion part of it that started back here with Aaron and Miriam. Now you have the people being swallowed up.
Mm-hmm.
We see this all the time, especially when you're in these types of circumstances. It can very easily go that way.
Yeah.
It can very easily go that way. So Moses is distracted on the mountain, having this great time with God, comes down, sees what's happening, throws the tablets down, and and then the difference was that Aaron repented, Miriam did not. And the entire camp, even after Korah was swallowed up with all of his people, the entire camp had to wait until Miriam's punishment was over. So the entire camp is now inconvenienced for 7 days while Miriam has to heal from leprosy, from her non-repentance. Do you see what I'm saying? So you realize as a leader that your decisions and your actions have consequences for other people. And so you're very cognizant of that. I'm very cognizant of that my decisions and my actions have unintended consequences for other people. It was the same thing when I was raising my children. My children had to live through the consequences of my actions and my decisions every day. They didn't ask for that.
Right.
But they had to live through it. And it's the same thing here. And when we were here in this community, it was exactly the same way. You had people who came in from the outside who wanted to cause a kerfuffle.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You give them the opportunity to stand down and think about what they're doing and pull back from it, repent, if you will, pull back from it. And they chose to. Okay, they came back with food. But the unintended consequences was for everybody else too. Because because of that interaction, there was an unintended consequences for the other people that were there.
Sure.
Um,
FEMA left,
and
and someone may have been there to talk to them, and they didn't
yeah,
have that right delivered
yeah.
because
And
of
in your own
someone
team,
else's ignorance.
yeah, and in our own team, our people had to sit and decide who was the bad guy, because some of them came in with a predisposed understanding that FEMA is the bad guy. And it caused them to question, all of a sudden, it caused them to question, wait a minute, who's the villain here? What just happened here? Maybe I need to take a look at that, because you brought it with you.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You bring it with you. And so if you're not willing to, if my people would not have begun to examine the way that they were seeing things, or their newfound understanding based on this new information, they might not have fared so well. And one of my team that was there just in the very last week, he looked at me and he said, I bought into this. I bought into them being a villain, and that they were doing those things. And he said, I've preached it. I've talked about it. I have reacted to it. I've been angry about it. And he said, I'm realizing now that the things that I've heard and the things that I've regurgitated aren't necessarily the way that they really are. And that's what happens when you have groupthink.
Mm-hmm.
If all you're doing is regurgitating what you hear rather than examining the facts, because facts aren't truth. Facts can either be proved or disproved.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Truth is this is the situation that I'm in. This is what happened. This is, so there's a difference between the two. So if you examine the facts, here's the fact. This is a fact. That happened. It didn't happen. It did happen. It didn't happen. These are the facts. You know what I'm
Yeah, and
saying?
all
But
that
what's your
mattered at
truth?
that time was what we witnessed on the ground.
Yes, but what's your truth now?
Correct.
Now, before your truth was that there's got to be a villain. They have to be a villain. That was your truth, and you acted on that truth. Now, I'm not saying
Based on
that,
rumor.
yeah, and I'm not saying that some of those things may or may not be. I don't know. I've never seen it, because I've only worked with the people that are on the ground at the level that they're on right there as the
Right.
registrars. Whether there's something higher up that's going on, I don't know. I won't discount it. I won't affirm it. I don't know. That's all I can say. I do my own research on a lot of things, but this is why I always say that every Christian needs to be a theologian. You need to know the word and you need to know God for yourself, because if all you're doing is regurgitating something that you've been told, you're going to find you're very way off the mark. You're going to find that there's some things that have been made up or that have been misconstrued or in practice or in tradition that you're following and that you're doing that have nothing to do with truth or scripture or God himself. And that can cause
True.
people a crisis of faith. And when you get out there, when all of those, like I said, when it all falls down and you're out there left in the desert trying to rebuild something or trying to get to the next spot or next point, you realize that there is a pillar of smoke and a pillar of flame. You know what I'm saying? But it's guiding you along the way. It's your relationship with God in that form
Mm-hmm.
that will make or break you in the wilderness. It wasn't Moses' relationship. Go look at his relationship that built the golden calf. These people saw God every single day in the form of a cloud and in the form of he walked with them. He sent them manna every day. Their clothes never wore out. But yet when the time came, they chose. It's still the same way. Nothing's
Sure.
different. And so in every situation we get to choose. And that's, and again, that's why Joshua announced it before he went over when he said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And he made it a declaration. So I'm just saying, that's free. You can do with that whatever you want. But nothing's changed. What is that? Oh, I can't quite see it, but okay. Oh, yeah. Just saying. This is the way that it is. And
Mm-hmm.
again, if you don't have that in yourself already, if you are part of the groupthink, if you're part of the regurgitation, you're part of then you're not really anchored to anything. Because if you're every wind and wave of doctrine, itching ears, all that other stuff, you're not anchored to anything.
Yeah.
And that takes an examination. But if you know him and you know the word of God yourself, you can stand next to Buddha Billy and not be threatened. And Buddha Billy doesn't have to be threatened by you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Good
you can
guy.
respect each other. You can love each other. You can have a conversation that you disagree with or you don't disagree with. We're on very different parts of the spectrum politically, but it doesn't have to get ugly.
Yeah.
I don't
He
have
was
to be
very
ugly with him. He
respectful of
didn't have to be ugly with
our
me.
views,
Yeah,
both
absolutely.
religious and politically. So,
Yeah. We're very different on the spectrum when it comes to our politics, but I respect the man and I respect him and I love what he's doing for people and I love his heart and I love all those other things. I'm just saying, you know, I don't have to believe like he believes. He doesn't have to believe like I believe, but it's a mutual respect that we have for one another and understanding that we are both living what we believe the way that we believe it. You know what I'm saying?
now,
I don't have to be in conflict with that.
yeah.
But then
Now is the time.
if you have somebody shouting out their window, you need to be saved, that's a problem.
Well, now is the time, granted, for a month or so we were in a disaster area. But it's all about, again, it's about community.
Yeah.
And you better, no matter what kind of community you live in, that person who lives near you, who may end up in a bunker or trapped in a building or whatever with you,
Yep.
you may have to close your eyes to rest and trust them with your life.
Hmm. And your
You,
stuff.
you are
Yeah.
not going to care if it's Buddha Billy.
Nope.
None of that's going to matter. But now is the
Yeah.
time. Now is the time that you bond and you work together,
Yep.
so that Buddha Billy is not a stranger to you.
Yeah. And I know that if he needed anything, he knows that I would help him. He knows, and I know that if I needed anything, he'd be there for me too.
Yep, good guy.
I know that, you know,
Yep,
and he was. I mean, he came down and he took my side by side and he went and washed it so that I could take it back and it wouldn't be dirty. And you know what I'm saying? And anything else you need, Trace, anything else you need, anything, I mean, he was one of the ones that was there, him and Halfway Bill and some of the other ones. Oh my gosh, Jason, who did our generators every single
awesome
day,
guy.
morning and night, morning and night. He would come over there early in the morning and get our generators up and running. And he'd be there
Never
late at night
complain.
getting them. Never did, never did. And wanted to know, was there anything else you needed, Trace? Is there anything else we can do? And, just people like that. And then Patricia, the school teacher, and all the people that came and helped when the guys went down to build the shelter for the kids, the bus stop for the kids, all the people that brought pieces and parts of something to help build that, um
Yep.
right down to our bandit in the bush and Ryan and Squiddy
Matt.
and everybody else. Yeah. You know, we were all there for the same reason, and it was just we had a common cause, and that was to help these people get over the hump
Yep.
and start to live again, you know.
Well, we could talk on this probably all night, but
Mhm.
we've passed the 1 hour mark.
Oh boy.
Flew by.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, hopefully everything will come together to go back for Thanksgiving. Um, I've actually texted a few times with Becky,
Uh-huh.
who lived there with Jim and the family.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, After we left, she told me, she said, "Yeah, we kind of figured out that y'all were gone because Dad and Mom went and bought a bushel of apples up on the mountain, and Dad was proud of the apples, and he was driving around trying to find you all to give you some of his apples." So
Yeah.
um, I appreciate you taking the time out. I know you're tired. I
It's all
appreciate
good.
you taking the time out to share your thoughts on this discussion. And um, it was, I, you know, it was it, even though it was away from home, it was a special time.
It
There
was.
was something about this mission that was
Hmm.
it truly wasn't work.
No,
Whether it
no.
was and it was really beyond. It was really beyond doing a deed for mankind. It was even
Hmm.
beyond that.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, I, it's I'm really blessed because the community and neighborhood I live in, that I'm surrounded by people who will do the same things that we went to do for this community,
Hmm.
and having that comfort is really, I
Hmm.
can't describe it, but uh, I don't believe in coincidences, and I really
Hmm.
believe that things happen to put us there at this time for a reason.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
I don't
I
know what
think
it is
too,
yet.
I think too, it's practice for what's coming and you find out who you really are. Um, with the challenge of it and with the, because we talk about it, we talk about prepping, we talk about being prepared, we talk about those things, but none of us were prepared to be without our phones. We had no idea what life was like without the phone. But the thing is at our age, we still remember a time when we didn't even have a phone. You know what I'm saying?
The
And so
rotary
we were
phone,
able, yeah,
the
we were
pop
able
phone.
to adjust, I think, a lot easier than some of the younger people.
Yeah,
Because we reverted back to what we used to do. And what we used to do was we would tell somebody to go tell somebody. You know what I'm saying?
sure.
That's what we reverted back to doing, or we would go and communicate another way. But I think the younger people had a little bit more difficult time there because they've never been without that phone or without any type of communication. We weren't prepared for the radios not to work either. We weren't prepared for that. So we're prepared now. So we learned some lessons there with that too. But what doesn't change, what never changes, in any one of these disasters is the ability for people to rise.
Human factor.
Yes, they rise from the challenge. They rise from the devastation, and the ability to rebuild, the
Yeah.
ability to come back stronger as a community when you relied on one another. It's the bonds are stronger than they ever were before in this community
And the
because
rebuild is
they did it.
within the community. The rebuild is
Mhm.
not waiting
Yeah,
on the outside
come in.
to
Yeah,
come in.
yep.
They would almost prefer the outside not come in.
Stay out. Yeah, yeah. They would. They would. And
No,
again,
go away.
sometimes the outside gets in the way.
Yeah,
It brings with it, like I said, it's what you bring with you. If government brings with it red tape, it brings with it all this other kind of regulation. It brings with it all this other kind of
yeah.
stuff.
What do you
And
come to
without it,
fight
they were
with?
able to get done what needed to be done.
Yeah, true, true.
Mm-hmm. Pretty
Well,
amazing.
I know we'll be talking,
Yep. Yep.
but uh, tell brother Tim I said hello, and
I
thanks
will.
for sharing you for a
Yep.
little while to journey back to Pogie,
Yep.
Tennessee.
Well, hopefully we'll be picking his truck up sometime next week. Hopefully we'll be in Virginia to get that. I'm headed back to Pogie on the 23rd and bringing some people from Ohio down there too with 100 turkeys to be cooked for Thanksgiving. And so I'm going to be down there the 23rd through the 26th
It's gonna
or
be
20
awesome.
or 27th. Yeah. For Thanksgiving. Hopefully um, that's going to be one of the normal things
Yeah,
to bring people back
get them
to
back to normalcy.
a table. Yeah, a
Yeah,
table and community and just some normal.
yeah. We'll see you.
All right, have a
We'll
good
see you.
one.
You too. Thank you. Appreciate you. And
Yep.
till next time, um, we'll talk. Be
All
blessed.
right.
All
You
right.
too.
Bye bye.
This drone footage that I've taken here was just a little way up from where the temporary fire station is. And as the drone turns around the corner of the river, you'll be able to see just how much had been actually deposited in terms of debris that had been washed down. Now, bear in mind, well, you'll see it in the next portions of the video. I will show you how the bridges got washed away by what I call beaver dams that were built. And it was all this kind of debris that had actually piled up against the bridges, forming dams. And as the flash floods came through and the first bridge had been knocked down, this is what had unleashed on the second bridge and what was at the second bridge. Thank heavens for this forested area that was there, that I think in a way acted as a break for those logs as they were coming down, those trees as they were coming down. Otherwise, I fear that the carnage and the damage to the property, which you will see as I fly back with the drone down on the far end of the footage, would have been in real trouble. now on with the first day's work. It was out at the chainsaws and time to get across the river where the bridges had been knocked down. These bridges were constructed by locals using trailers and designs that they had come up with themselves. You would see rather ingenious the way this community had just come together to take care of their needs. And they just got it done. Look at that. There down the bottom you can see where the bridge used to be. And that is completely obliterated in the storm. And yeah, you can just take a look. These are the trailers. There were 3 trailers placed in the river. And then a bridge laid across the top of those to give access into and off of a place known as Bob's Island. Then came the part that I'd really been itching for. I couldn't wait to get the chainsaw out and get working. And yeah, we were helping a gentleman that lived up in the mountains, clearing away trees that had fallen across his driveway and or that were extremely dangerous in not allowing him to get in and out of his property without serious risk of injury or even a fatality. Look at the size of these trunks on the tree and you will understand exactly why.
That way a little bit.
As you can tell, this was the first effort and rather anxious behind the wheel, but over she went. That was something that we crossed multiple times thereafter. And of course, you get to a level of comfort where you no longer need a guide to show you how to get across that little bridge. However, it was tight. These images on Google Earth, you'll see right in the center there is a dam located right high up in the mountains. There was nearly about 1,000 feet in elevation change. And this is really where the problem began, when that dam wall got breached and then unleashed everything that was in it and below.
So, if you look at this video, this is where I think the highest dam burst. So this would have begun the whole flash flood experience as this dam wall burst. And it would have caused the surge of water that went down into the valley that really started the catastrophe. But we're up here now. The flag is flying. I do, however, want to show you something else. Because this is supposed to be summer. Well, maybe just early fall. However, we've had an early fall. Look at the snow on the south roof. So, not too much damage here, maybe one overlaying branch or so that we could cut away, but I'm going to keep going to the waypoint that we're going to inspect, where we've had rumors that people are trapped.
Below this dam was this bridge, and as you can see, the debris had built up against this bridge, forming what I refer to as a beaver dam. And you just take a look at the density of this and exactly what it is that is trapped in that bridge. With their understanding of what we saw that was laying further downstream. Here in another aerial shot, you will see where the water actually hit and just decimated what was standing in its pathway. You will see its beams had been pushed and portions of the surface of the bridge had been thrown, I would guess somewhere in the region of about 270 odd to 300 plus yards down the river. From where I'd been standing and filming.
we go. This is what this river looks like when there ain't much water flowing in it. Look where I'm standing. That's the edge of the road. Yeah? And there is the bridge. So there's other parts of it, and this is what would have gone straight on down towards where the command station is and where the fire station was. But this is just unbelievable that such a small river under normal circumstances could rise up to create the destructive force that it actually did during Hurricane Helene.
So that would put all of this into perspective. If you can imagine, this would have been dammed up against that bridge, and it would have been hit by the force of, firstly, the mud dam up at the top of the mountain that went, which knocked out the previous bridge that we had looked at, followed by the second bridge, which would have had a lot of this debris dammed up against it. And the combined force of that just absolutely obliterated that bridge. Later that evening, we had received reports that there were people that had been trapped behind this mudslide, and we went out to see if we could get some supplies out to them, whilst not coming across anybody who needed our help that particular evening. The next day, there were numerous folk whom we had found that needed both supplies and or medical attention that we were fortunate in that we were able to assist. This is the view from Google Earth, and you can see the topography of the area that we were working in along Heaton Branch Road, and along and adjacent to that river is primarily where we were engaged. Here is a situation where we needed to perform an emergency medical procedure, which fortunately we had Matt with us, and he had the skills to assist in performing a very delicate procedure. After not having the correct equipment, still managing to take great strides in terms of helping this gentleman save his life. The next day, we went up to the cemetery that we had found. It had no flag, and there I got to witness a very beautiful moment as Ryan hoisted the United States flag, and I got to observe what this is truly about. This is about caring for your fellow man, and this is about patriotism for your flag. We then walked through the graveyard, putting flowers back, writing crosses that had fallen over, and just spending some time in the actual little chapel that was there, enjoying and absorbing this environment. But just listen to this silence. That night at dinner, Ryan came up with an idea, Operations Boots on the Ground. And this is something you will hear about as we seek to help in future disasters. Here's a nighttime view of our digs. There you go. There's the toy hauler. there's Pumba, generators are going, and it's pretty late and it's pretty short, yeah, and we are still hard at work. And yeah, we have Ryan and Billy folding the national flag, which would be presented to the fire chief of the Elk Mills Volunteer Fire Department. This really was a very special moment for us as well.
Right. It's pretty close, but not quite, buddy. Do you think I should? So this is why people would choose East Tennessee over West Tennessee. The Appalachians in all its glory, and as you see it at the setting of the sun, as I pan around, the exquisite location where the first meeting of the Volunteer Fire Organization of Elk Mills will be taking place this evening after the devastation of Hurricane Helene. So this is an absolute apt setting for such an occasion, and may it be momentous, and may all these firefighters return with new resolve and commitment to their community.
This is yours. I wish you all the best, and I'll be here as long as I can to help you folks. I'm very proud of all of you folks and everything you've gone through. I know this isn't easy, and wish you all the best. If you ever need anything from me or any of my team, we will always be here for you.
Hurrah!
And then it was back to work, clearing, cutting, and splitting wood. Yet another promise made and another promise kept. It was a great delight that we managed to get all of this cleared before we got orders to stand down, which eventually led to the end of our presence.
Okay, so if you've made it this far, you've made it through the discussion with Dr. Elder and also the drone footage, and that kind of wraps up for the most part the past month and a half phase of the disaster deployment. I kind of thought this would kind of be the end of the Hurricane Helene updates. However, they will continue. The next update will be Hurricane Helene Update 9, and it'll be a new location with a new project. And in Hurricane Helene Update 9, I'll tell you more about how this new project came about and what the efforts are going to be on it. It's a lot different from the Poga Elk Mills deployment and working the emergency operations cell part of it. This is more on a personal level, in a different disaster area, in a different community. And I'll tell you how it came about in the next update, so you don't want to miss it. So if you like this video, please hit like, and feel free to share with others. And if you have any comments, you can leave them below. If you want to email me, preparedness101@protonmail.com. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And thank you to all the new subscribers again. Much appreciated. And always remember to be blessed, and don't forget to give thanks. Bravo Echo out.